first death that I really remember affecting me strongly was my grandfather. Papa, I called him. This tattoo actually here on my arm is in memory of him because he had one in the same spot in a similar style. I call her Poppy, because his name was Papa. Poppy, Papa, get it? I can make her dance a little bit too, see? See? My grandfather lived with us because he had had a stroke some years prior. He was in his 60s and was a heavy smoker. To this day, if I see a box of Camels, I instantly think of him. He got lung cancer, unsurprisingly, and one day had to go to the hospital. He never came home. He died right before my 7th birthday, which, for those of you who are new here, also happens to fall on Christmas. So, yeah, it was a bummer twice over. I don't have a lot of memories of that time because I was pretty young, but I do have at least one very vivid image in my head of him in his hospital bed. And he just looked completely different. At the funeral, I remember watching my older cousin kiss his cheek, and I knew instantly that I wasn't going to do that. I just refused to do it. Not that anyone was forcing me to, mind you, but I didn't want to touch it. A dead person doesn't look like they're sleeping. A dead person looks dead.
In movies, they always say that they look like they're sleeping. She doesn't look like she's sleeping. She looks dead.
They look like a shell, hollow, some kind of uncanny resemblance to a living person, kind of like a wax figurine. That thing lying in the casket wasn't my papa anymore. And I didn't want my last memory of him to be kissing a cold, dead thing. That was my first real brush with death. But it wouldn't be my last.
Evacuated as a dangerous and fast-moving fire burns dozens of homes in Southern California.
Shooter had been briefly hospitalized just weeks before the devastating incident.
Never made much sense to me. We all say there's a heaven, and it's waiting for us. Then we claw, fight, and beg for a few more minutes at the end. Minutes.
Hi, my name is mainly Mandy, and if you're watching this, I might already be dead. Now, some of you might find that a tad morbid, or melodramatic, or even just a teeny bit cringe to start off a video in that way. And those are all the correct responses. It is morbid for me to remind you all of my fleeting mortality, let alone yours. It's definitely dramatic, giving what I think at least one of my colleagues would refer to as main character energy. And it is at least a little bit cringy because, well, I mean, let's face it, anything that comes out of a video essayist's mouth is at least a little bit cringy. That's just an inherent part of the job. But one thing it's not is a lie. Because I have no idea when you're watching this video. Maybe you're watching it during the premiere. Or perhaps it's 5 years from now, 10, 20, 100. And the further out we get from when this video is uploaded, the greater the chance there is that I'm no longer around. Hell, I could die while I'm making this video. Better f***ing not. I wasn't talking to God just then. My upstairs roommate. The hour at which I will meet my end could come at literally any moment from any number of possible causes. I could get hit by a car, or drown from swimming, or maybe get eaten by a vampire. I have no idea when I'll die or how. So when I said what I said at the beginning of the video, as, morbid and melodramatic and cringy as it may be, I was still being honest. And once I'm dead, I don't really know what to expect. Could be oblivion, just a return to that unconscious state I had before I was, forcibly thrust into it. Or maybe there'll be fluffy clouds and relatives who had passed on before. Maybe I'll be murdered under such horrific circumstances that a crow will bring my spirit back from the afterlife so that I can avenge the wrongful deaths of myself and my fiancé in a satisfying trail of blood and broken bodies. And maybe I can run on some rooftops while it rains and Nine Inch Nails plays. Who can say for certain? This year I have found myself thinking about death a lot. It's honestly kind of hard not to.
Your body, our choice.
I don't think I know a single person in my community who hasn't lost someone this year. We're talking pets, cousins, aunts, moms, dads, sometimes even both. Personally, I have known 4 people who have died this year. One of whom I found out about while I was working on this script. I have repeatedly referred to 2024 as the year of death, big cap letters and everything. And I don't think it's just me. I think we're all feeling it, right? 2024 has a vibe. There's this heaviness, an acute anxiety, a paranoia that death is just lurking right around the corner.
Pennsylvania, the biggest battleground prize of the night will go to former President Donald Trump. ABC News can now project.
Victims and survivors of the mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine, 1 year later.
Palestinian colleagues are not here today because the systems we currently exist in don't recognize the value of Palestinian life.
What can we do about that? Is there anything to be done? Well, friends, I'm here to tell you that there's hope. There's a way to come to terms with our brief, fleeting existence on this earth, and it'll only cost you $6.99 a month. I've discovered the secret that the powers that be don't want you to know about. A way to come to terms with your inconsequential existence on this planet. It will require hours of your attention and a card on file, but trust me when I say it is well worth it. Because I have discovered Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan is a GMO-free, grass-fed, completely organic alternative to far more heavily processed coping mechanisms. After being on Michael Flanagan for 3 months, my skin looks amazing and my profit margins have soared. I'm on Michael Flanagan right now and I feel amazing. Possible content warnings associated with discussion of Michael Flanagan include death, dying, suicide ideation, genocide, racism, transphobia, homophobia, school shootings, climate change, police brutality, and basically every bad thing you can think of. Another possible side effect of this video is having all of Michael Flanagan's shows spoiled for you, which, I mean, at least I warned you. But trust me when I say that all of those depressing possible side effects are worth it. Because Michael Flanagan has done the impossible. He has cured my fear of death. Kinda.
Now it's over, I'm dead, and I haven't done anything that I want. Or I'm still alive, and there's nothing I want to do.
And the Palestinians are taught to kill us at 2 years old.
Rescue crews evacuating hundreds of residents across 3 counties in the Tampa Bay area.
Dead doesn't mean gone.
For so many of us, death has become the unmentionable thing, a monstrous silence. But this is no help to the dying, who are probably lonelier now than they've ever been.
When I was in middle school, all the way back in the early aughts, there was this girl in my grade who died in a car crash. She and I were in a few of the same classes, most notably 6th grade science, which neither one of us was very good at. I liked her well enough. I mean, as much as you can like anyone you only ever really talk to in science lab. Her death was definitely a shock to me as much as it was anybody else. I mean, kids aren't supposed to die, right? She was 14 years old. If she had lived and was still alive, she'd be my age by now. And sometimes I find myself wondering what her life would look like. Would she be married? Have kids of her own? Would she have stayed in Maine the way I did, or would she have gotten the hell out of here the second she could have? Maybe, ultimately, she's the lucky one. You know, she didn't have to live through a pandemic or a Trump presidency. She never had to learn the horrors of cryptocurrency or AI-generated art. The year that my grade graduated high school, they included a little memoriam section for her in the yearbook. Nothing fancy, you know, her picture, a little bit of writing. In it, they included this piece of writing that I assume she must have written, you know, before her death. And it included a list of 5 things that she wanted to change in the world. That list included homelessness, hunger, and ending school violence.
Whatever that life is, we bear witness.
It's a horror.
So this video essay, this epitaph, is going to be a discussion of Mike Flanagan's work, specifically the moments he helped create which seem to speak directly to my own anxiety and fears surrounding death. But What is a Mike Flanagan? For those who are not familiar, Mike Flanagan is a showrunner and filmmaker, writing, directing a variety of TV shows and films that have been well received over the last few years. Most specifically associated with horror, he has gained a lot of high praise for his writing and directing style. Now, I don't want to risk making it sound like that Mike Flanagan is solely responsible for his shows and movies being good. Obviously, that's not true. He works with some of the best in the industry. Everybody from set designers, musicians, as well as other writers are people who are working at the top of their game. Some fantastic actors, of course, get a lot of praise for their work as well. Victoria Pedretti, Robert Longstreet, Daddy. It's my one I'm allowing myself. I'm allowing one, okay? It's my birthday month, okay? I get to be a little thirsty. Thank you. A tour theory is silly. I will say that Mike Flanagan does seem to create really good working conditions on his sets, at least based on all the interviews that I've seen from people who have worked with him, and that therefore inspires them to bring their A game. And I love that. I think a major contributing factor to my enjoyment of Mike Flanagan's work is that if you take out all of the spooky bits, you know, the ghosts, the vampires, all of that, his work is actually very human and relatable.
Shove me up your... Did you just punch me in the boob?
Yeah. Yeah.
Relevant to today's video, Mike has a lot to say about the subject of death. And I don't just mean that he lets a lot of characters die in his works, although that is also true. Characters in his projects regularly discuss death, whether talking about what they think will happen when they die or their fears of it eventually taking themselves or a loved one.
See, the ancients, they all wanted to live on after they died. Well, everybody does.
But I've been thinking that dying is a really shitty reason not to live.
Yeah, that's where religion comes from. That's the whole question. What happens when we die?
What the fuck happens?
Now, I can't talk about every single time that death comes up in one of his shows, or even do a breakdown of every single relevant conversation. This would be a 6-hour video essay if I did that. However, what I would like to do instead is to focus on some specific themes and scenes that I think really speak to my own deathly fears. Today I'll be mostly talking in depth about Haunting of Bly Manor and of course my beloved Midnight Club, because those two are probably my favorites, but rest assured I will be talking about some of the other shows as well. Also, this video will offer some summary just to make sure that, you know, things are tracking well and all of that, but I won't be doing like full recaps of these shows. If you're interested in that, I do have a couple of videos that I can recommend, in particular these two by Lady Night the Brave. I would also highly recommend watching Aaron Knox's Midnight Mass video if you haven't seen that yet. I think the best place to start is to just go ahead and address the forbidden elephant in the room. Everybody we love is going to die.
Everything lives until it dies, including the people we love most.
To truly love another person is to accept that the work of loving them is worth the pain of losing them.
A consistent fear and reality that Flanagan explores in the majority of his works is that of the fear of losing someone we care about. While this is present, of course, in his very first show, Haunting of Hill House, I'm especially fascinated in how he talks about it in his second show, Haunting of Bly Manor. Bly Manor follows the story of a young American woman, Dani, who is hired to be an au pair in a beautiful but clearly very haunted mansion in the English countryside. The children, Flora and Miles, are a bit strange, but most of their bizarre behavior is dismissed as they had both lost their parents at a young age, as well as a previous au pair. Also on the grounds are Hannah, a somewhat flighty but still very sweet housekeeper, Jamie, the gardener, who Dani feels an instant draw to, and Owen, the mansion's cook, who is, of course, the best character ever.
Oh, no, I've done it.
Oh, don't.
You're
No.
a battered woman.
Dani and Jamie's relationship quickly becomes a major focus of the story, a welcome reprieve from the show's more disturbing and spooky moments. We see Dani coming to terms with a tragic loss in her past, while also becoming closer and closer to the gardener. I know some people didn't like Bly Manor, and ultimately, you're allowed your opinion, obviously, but I fell in love with it basically from the start. The characters are all charming, the ghosts are rather unique with this whole faces fading as time goes on thing, and also, it's so gay. Right, I gotta focus, I gotta do analysis, right. In episode 6, The Jolly Corner, Jamie shows Dani some special flowers that she's been growing on the grounds. They're called moonflowers. They take a lot of work to keep alive, to nurture and to grow, and they only bloom once, after which they immediately die. Jamie sees the effort as ultimately worth it. She also opens up to Danny about her rough childhood, as well as the fact that she spent some time in prison. And then at the end of the interaction, they kiss and I scream and point at my TV, "Gay! See the gay?" The moonflower is doomed. Jamie knows that eventually it will wither and die. Nothing can stop that. While under her care, though, they thrive and get to have that moment of beauty at all. Likewise, Danny gets to be fully, honestly herself, queer and unapologetic in her relationship with Jamie. Arguably, she gets to bloom just as beautifully as one of Jamie's flowers, and just as brief, too. To better understand the significance of this, let's go ahead and jump ahead to the very last episode of the show, The Beast in the Jungle. Once Danny has invited the rageful spirit of the once proud lady of Bly Manor, she tells Jamie that she doesn't know how much time she has left. She says it feels like there's some beast, some monster in the jungle surrounding her that's going to leap out and pounce at any minute, and all she can do is just wait for it to happen. And Jamie offers to wait with her. We get to see them have a life together, live together, work together, nurture plants, and just love. What they grow and cultivate together has an expiration date. They know it can't last forever, but they still do it. And then one day, Danny is gone.
Take me with you, she cried in her heart.
While all of Flanagan's shows deal with the terror of eventually losing someone we love, I think Bly really nails it. The Moonflower makes for a pretty obvious comparison to the love that Jamie and Danny get to experience. It's brief but beautiful, requires great effort, but is ultimately worth it for the authentic joy that they both get to experience together. Plus, there's this really beautiful scene at the end of the episode where the storyteller, who we now realize has been Jamie this whole time, comforts a bride right before her wedding. The young woman confesses to having some pretty serious fears about losing her future husband, and she asks Jamie what she'll do if he dies first. Jamie says,
"You shouldn't be thinking of losing each other at all. Don't let that hang over your happiness right now. Enjoy that easy silence with him. 'Tis rare what you've got. But when the time does come, years and years from now, mind you, will be hard every day and it won't get easier. But eventually, after some time, you'll find little moments, little pieces of your life that remind you of him. And they'll be silly and dumb, or they'll be sad and you'll cry for hours. But there'll still be a piece of him, and you'll hold them tight. It'll be like he's here with you, even though he's gone."
My name is mainly Mandy, and I'm afraid to lose the people I love. I have this little pact with my brother and sister that they're not allowed to die before I do. Likewise, I'm not allowed to die before they do. So I guess we're all gonna pull like a Thelma and Louise in her 90s or something. I can't imagine being in a world where my siblings aren't at least a phone call away. And sometimes when I have thought about that, I'll just start crying, like uncontrollably sobbing. Sometimes I look at my cats, who are now considered old enough to be senior animals, and find myself thinking about when they're gonna die. You know, like 50 years from now. That's realistic, right? One day I'm gonna be so heartbroken because the first sound I hear in the morning isn't Murray knocking something over, or how one day I'll be able to walk to the bathroom without tripping because, you know, I won't have Tantrum right there, who does not understand, despite all these years later, that walking is not a cooperative activity. Admittedly, that might be kind of fun, but still. My cats will live a lot shorter life than what I would like them to, and they are expensive little fuckers, I'll tell you that. But it is ultimately worth the effort and the cost to see them happy, thriving, purring, covering every inch of my life in cat hair. I think Flanagan understands that you're confronted with two choices when dealing with the fact that your loved ones are eventually going to die. You can either keep everybody away and then not feel that loss when they're gone, or you can embrace the temporary. You can enjoy whatever time you have left and make the most of it. When somebody I love dies, someone I cared about, I try to focus less on what I no longer get to have now that they've died, and instead focus on what I did get to have while they were here. I get to regularly make my sister laugh, and we've had so many little mini adventures over the years. My brother, similarly, we've had some great times together, and also he has been very much a help to me, especially recently. My cats regularly get into my lap when I'm editing a video or curl up on my legs when I'm falling asleep. I'm still scared to lose the people that I love, if I'm being honest. The thought that one day that they'll be gone, that all I'll have left of them is some memories, maybe some pictures and some saved voice messages. I mean, that's heartbreaking. But like Jamie, I choose to believe that the bloom, however brief it may be, is ultimately worth it. And I know that they will always be with me in their own way. I can admit, though, that sometimes that's still not enough comfort. It feels a little weird in a video where I'm talking about deaths that have personally affected me to bring up the deaths of celebrities or public figures. But I will admit that there have been some public figures that I felt such a, parasocial closeness to, that when they died, their deaths hit me hard. Of course, a major one was Robin Williams.
Tragic, devastating word that Robin Williams has been confirmed dead. He was 63 years old.
I was a huge Robin Williams fan growing up. I used to watch his movies almost on repeat, basically. Movies like Fern Gully, Hook, Aladdin, and Mrs. Doubtfire. As I grew up, I came to, of course, appreciate his more adult movies, the ones that were less focused on being family-friendly. Things like Dead Poets Society, 1 Hour Photo, Good Will Hunting, What Dreams May Come, and of course, Death to Smoochie. I sobbed twice the day I found out he died. The first time, the one that was the most significant cry, was when my roommates and I decided to watch Hook. And I remember there's that scene, and I don't know why it was this scene specifically, but that scene where the little boy goes up to him and is touching his face. And then he just breaks into this big smile and says,
"Oh, there you are, Peter."
Another celebrity death that really got to me was Chester Bennington.
Chester Bennington, the lead singer of the rock band Linkin Park, was found dead this morning.
I was a huge Linkin Park fan as a teenager. Those first two albums came out in the midst of me being an angsty preteen in Central Maine, so I just really glommed onto them. I'm pretty sure part of the reason why I'm going partially deaf now is from all the hours of just directly blasting In the End and Nobody's Listening and Numb directly into my eardrums. After Chester died, there was this concert where the band did In the End without him. And instead they had the audience singing the chorus.
I want you guys to sing it so loud that Chester can hear you. Are you ready to do that?
We're talking a congregation of diehard fans, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people gathered, and the sun comes out, and people are just singing so passionately together as the tears stream down their faces. And it is easily one of the most beautiful fucking things I have ever seen. These two men aren't just similar in the sense that they were celebrities who I liked and then they died. They also are similar in that they both dealt with mental illness, specifically depression. And ultimately, they died because of making an attempt on their lives. When I think about what their last moments must have been like and how they must have been feeling, I find myself just really hoping that at some point right before, they were able to feel some measure of peace, of some bit of the love that so many people had for them. But I guess that's kind of what I hope for everyone.
And John Lennon once said something like, "Death is just getting out of one car and into another." You know what I say? Fuck the car.
Okay, let's talk about my underappreciated stepchild. All of Flanagan's shows are about death, but this one, Midnight Club, is about dying. It kicks off when our main character, Alanka, a high school senior, finds out that she's sick with thyroid cancer. Despite the efforts of her doctors, they eventually rule that there's nothing more they can do for her, predicting that she won't live much past her 20th birthday. Alanka ends up going to a hospice specifically for dying teenagers and young adults, meeting a variety of other doomed young people, including the fierce Anya, and of course, pretty boy Kevin. Not long after arriving, Alanka finds out that at midnight, the teenagers gather in the library to tell each other stories, most of which often have insight to their thoughts about their impending deaths. Midnight Club is really interesting because it's really about coming to terms with the fact that you will die at all. And he does it with babies!
They're babies!
While the majority of the other teens and young people there seem pretty accepting of the fact that they are doomed to die, Alanka is steadfast in her belief that she can survive the odds.
I got this.
She relentlessly researches and tries to hunt down clues about a previous patient at Brightcliff who was miraculously cured of her own thyroid cancer. She tries experimental teas and gathers ingredients from the surrounding grounds. She even learns about ancient Greek rituals from this lady who is definitely not shady at all. It's only after realizing that she was being manipulated and almost sacrificed for the potential survival of somebody else that she finally becomes accepting of her impending death.
I'm going to die.
Me too.
Seeing how far some people will try to cheat death, to outmaneuver it, horrifies her. And rightly so. And interestingly enough, I don't think the show is actually critiquing the idea of, fighting the good fight. I think more it's just trying to encourage the idea of enjoying living life while you're living it, as opposed to just focusing on the struggle.
Look at the language we use, the language of battle. We're gonna fight this thing. We're gonna fight with everything we've got. Be brave for the fight. And then people say they lost the battle. It's so backwards. To talk about the fight, it's active, it's visceral. Don't look at the hard part. Look at all these shiny, sharp weapons we've developed, all for you to try. Brightcliff isn't about battles. It's about permission to leave the battlefield, to focus on living instead of fighting.
What's happening to Alanka, to all of the others at Brightcliff, is extremely unfair. For children and those at the beginning of their life, death should be the furthest thing from their mind. That's not the way life always works. And of course, it's not like the first time this has ever happened in the Flanagan verse. What happened to Rebecca Jessel was unfair. What happened to Hannah was unfair. What happened to Lenore and Nell and Riley and Joe Colley was unfair. But what's happening with the characters of Midnight Club feels especially unfair because, well, again,
They're babies!
And it's here that I want to focus in on a character whose fate feels especially unfair to me. In episode 8, Road to Nowhere, one of the Brightcliff's patients, Natsuki, reads Amesh one of her stories after the club has been locked out of their usual meeting spot. These two are very cute together, by the way. Even while watching the show and knowing what their fate is going to eventually be, I kind of can't help but just wish that they get to grow old together. Like, I don't know, they're just really cute. The story that Natsuki tells Amesh is about a young woman named Teresa, who one day gets into her car and goes for a drive. Along the way, she picks up two hitchhikers named Freedom Jack and Poppycorn, who endlessly argue back and forth about whether or not their driver should stop. The tension continues to rise as Teresa realizes she keeps passing the same figure wearing a hoodie alongside the road, keeps seeing the same gas station over and over again, and a mysterious smell fills the car. It's clear that this is no ordinary road, nor her passengers ordinary hitchhikers, especially with Freedom Jack occasionally offering, "It's gonna hurt," sans any context. Finally, Teresa decides to get out of the car and follows a young girl, herself as a child, to a nearby garage. Inside, a familiar car is idling. It's then that Jack and Poppy reveal that she never left the garage, that she's dying. The two of them represent her will to live and her suicide ideation that she struggles with. Poppy encourages her to live, but Jack reminds her how much living will hurt.
It's gonna hurt.
Die?
Living. It's gonna fucking hurt if you stay. It'll be fucking pain if you stay.
And they tell her that they're always going to be with her, that she's always going to struggle with the desire to live, but also the desire to no longer be in pain. In the last moments before the story, Teresa wakes up and struggles to open the car door. In her final moments, she finally reaches the car door and it opens, revealing a blinding white light, leaving it a bit ambiguous as to whether she died and the white light represents her passing on, or if she survived after all. In the real world, Nazi tells Amesh that, in reality, she didn't actually get to the door in time, but that her mother, thankfully, found her and managed to get her to medical attention in time to save her life. And then she found out that she was dying anyway.
It's the weirdest thing. I really thought I didn't want to live. Really thought it. You know, depression is amazing like that. Your own brain is trying to kill you. Your own thoughts are trying to kill you, and I listened to them. Then I thought I wanted to die, but I survived, and I realized how much I wanted to live. And I found out I was dying anyway.
My name is mainly Mandy, and sometimes I want to die. It's an uncomfortable feeling to be afraid of death, but then to also experience so much internal pain occasionally that you consider ending it all yourself. And maybe it's a bit of a blessing, right? I mean, I have definitely a couple of times come close, like dangerously close to doing something that could have been more permanent. But thankfully, that fear of death has always kept me from crossing over that final line. But also, it makes the inevitability of death feel all the more unfair, doesn't it? To struggle, to keep yourself alive, to fight that part of yourself that continually whispers in your ear how much easier it would be to just lie down and give up, to go through all of that and then you just die anyway. And sure, it's possible that if you live long enough, things will get better and more beautiful and it'll have ultimately been worth it. But there is no guarantee of that. There's no refund at the ticket stand if the carnival shuts down early because of a storm, because things could also get worse.
The mayor says the city may have to temporarily bury bodies on public land if they run out of morgue space.
And it is so fucking unfair to have lived this long, to have fought my own inner freedom jack tooth and fucking nail just so that I get to live through this.
This morning, new surveillance footage of an armed group of men carrying flags emblazoned with swastikas.
It's not fair to anyone, not my friends or my nephews or anyone. I forced myself to live, and my reward has been to live through interesting times. Unparalleled times. Through towers falling and white nationalism rising and the planet boiling all around me.
Video captured today when the ocean caught fire in the Gulf of Mexico just west of the Yucatan Peninsula.
You know, this video wasn't supposed to be this. Okay, this was supposed to be a straightforward, simple analysis video with some solid goth vibes. Keep it simple. But then something happened. Something changed. Okay, yes, that happened. Obviously, that's part of it. It feels incomplete as a leftist to make a video essay about death and not mention the fact that for some of us, the fear of death isn't some far-off destination. For some of us, death is where we fucking live.
We shouldn't get bullied into believing that people can be any sex they want to be.
Climate change is no longer beating down the door. It is in our living rooms, marching around our carpets with muddy boots it refuses to take off.
The aerial shot there is just alarming as you see the fire there against the night sky.
Fascism continues to rise. The bodies of Black and trans people especially continue to pile up, while at the same time, colonizers bulldoze family homes in Gaza. Death is here, my friends. Make no mistake. He has traded in his scythe for an assault rifle and is going school to school.
When a gunman shot his way into Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, killing 20 first graders.
Slater killing 17 students and staff.
It's very easy to want to push all the bad things in the world aside, but we forget this will just happen again and again.
It's hard to accept that you're alive only because you are lucky, not because you're faster or smarter or more perceptive. You're only alive because your opportunities, which were undoubtedly affected by your privileges, protected you.
A massive manhunt underway hours after a mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine.
I had to restart this script after writing 16 pages of it because it wasn't honest. Mike Flanagan didn't cure my fear of death. I am just as terrified of it as I've ever been. Oh shit. I think I just pulled a Flanagan monologue.
The accident against birth is just that, and so is everything that happens afterwards, or so it seems to me. How many times I could have died before now, and in how many different ways.
This video essay about death got kind of dark, didn't it? Okay, I'm sure you're all wondering when I'm gonna go ahead and explain these mysterious quotes that have been appearing throughout the essay. Statistically, at least one of you has already written a comment about it down below. I dare you not to delete it. Anyway, all of those mysterious quotes are from this book called Dying a Memoir. Dying a Memoir was written by an Australian woman named Corey Taylor. She was diagnosed with melanoma in her 60s. At a certain point, just like with Ilanka and the other patients at Brightcliff, her diagnosis became terminal. She wrote the book leading up to her death. In fact, she died a few months after it was published. Being honest, it's not the best book I've ever read. Far from it. Taylor's prose is hardly that striking or beautiful. I can't say that I felt any particular drive to seek out any of her previous writing after reading it. But there's something about this book and her ruminations on death that I just can't stop thinking about. Taylor's thoughts about her death are honest. They're vulnerable. Her attitude is one more of curiosity than of fright, but she hasn't exactly accepted it either. She wants to die on her own terms, but explains pretty early on in the book why she feels it's not fair to take her own life. So she's sort of stuck in this in-between, wanting it to just finally be over, but also not being willing to let it go.
Dying slowly, as I'm doing, feels like a retreat from consciousness back to the oblivion that precedes it. This retreat is led by the body, which grows weaker and weaker, requiring less and less fuel and more rest, until a few trips to the bathroom and back are all the exertion you can manage in a day. I'm no longer shocked by how feeble I am. My body is a dying animal. It is ugly and deformed, a burden I would like to lay down if only I could. But the body has its own schedule in the matter of dying, and its own methods, none of which I understand.
Taylor talks pretty extensively in the book about the challenges of dying, about what she'll miss when she's gone, and who.
The short answer to the question of what I'll miss the most is Shin, my husband of 31 years, and the face of my children. The long answer is the world and everything in it. Wind, sun, rain, snow, and all the rest. And I will miss being around to see what happens next. How things turn out. Whether my children's lives will prove as lucky as my own. But I will not miss dying. It is by far the hardest thing that I have ever done, and I will be glad when it's over.
There's something really interesting about reading someone's thoughts when they know that they're gonna die soon. It's very intimate in a way that I'm honestly, even now, still having a hard time describing. Maybe it's because death feels so personal. To me, it always felt like death was this very lonely kind of thing. And you really get a sense of that in Midnight Club. These young people are isolated from other people in their age group because of the singular experience they're going through. And they get to go somewhere where others are going through the same thing. They get to maintain friendships and relationships and be there for each other, and it's beautiful, and it makes me want to cry. Y'all, please watch Midnight Club. I swear, it's actually really good. Taylor is inviting us readers into this very intimate picture of the thoughts of a dying woman. I don't think I'll ever forget that.
It's often said that life is short, but life is also simultaneous. All of our experiences existing in time together in the flesh. For what are we, if not a body taking a mind for a walk, just to see what's there? And in the end, where do we get to, if not back to a beginning that we've never really left behind? Time present and time past, as both perhaps present in the time future and time future contained in time past. It is all, according to T.S. Eliot, the same thing. I'm a girl and I'm a dying woman. My body is my journey, the truest record of all I've done and seen, the site of all my joys and heartbreaks, all of my misapprehensions and blinding insights. If I feel the need to relive the journey, it is all there, written in runes on my body. Even my cells remember it, all that sunshine I bathed in as a child, too much as it turned out. In my beginning is my end.
Flanagan's work continually preaches the importance of making whatever peace you can with death. Those who can't, the ones who refuse, those people cause the most harm. Look at Peter Quint. So terrified of the thought of being alone, he kills his girlfriend he reportedly loves, kills Hannah, which I will never forgive him for, and damn near ruins the lives of 2 innocent children. Look at Olivia, manipulated by Hill House to try and kill her children to protect them from the horrors of life. Father Pruitt dooms an entire island because he's sad that he and his situationship are getting old. Shasta poisons 3 people in some wild bid to cure her cancer. Roderick and Madeline are definitely interested in the concept of immortality, and they're the worst people probably on this list. I really don't want to die, but I also don't want to, in my flailing, to hurt the people I care most about. I don't want to force my aging body to continue well past the time it is to expire. I don't want to be in unnecessary pain or agony just because the thought of the end scares the ever-loving shit out of me. I think what I'm trying to get at is that reading Taylor's book felt a bit like what watching one of Flanagan's shows feels like. It was a look at somebody else dealing with the inevitability of their own demise. I can see how Taylor is working through the grief of her own death and processing that. And I can also see that Flanagan is working through that same process in his work. I recognize it's not exactly the same thing, like he's not dying, he hasn't been diagnosed with a terminal illness, at least as far as I know. But still, there's this really interesting similar flavor to it, a familiarity there. And I think that intimacy that is required to talk about one's own death, well, it's really fucking scary. It's very vulnerable and makes you feel exposed. But if you always pull back from the darkness, you'll never really confront it. And at least with books like Taylor's or shows like Flanagan's, it helps me feel a little less alone when I do. I think when I die, whether gradually or all at once, my heart will stop beating. A little bit later, 5 whole minutes later,
my brain cells start dying. But in the meantime, in between, maybe my brain releases a flood of DMT, psychedelic drug released when we dream.
And I'll dream. Dream bigger than I ever dreamed before. My mind will rifle through all of the memories, long and short term, and the dreams will mix with the memories, and it's a curtain call. A dream to end all dreams.
My brain activity ceases, and there is nothing left of me. Pain. No memory, no awareness that I ever was.
That I ever hurt someone.
Everything is as it was before me. And the electricity disperses from my brain till it's just dead tissue.
Humans are organic. It's a fact. We're meant to die.
It's natural. Beautiful.
And it all breaks down and rises back up and breaks down again, and every living thing grows out of every dying thing.
We leave more life behind to take our place. And that life refreshes and recycles and goes on and on.
And I'm serving a purpose. I'm feeding life.
And then I'll be broken apart, and the littlest pieces of me will be recycled, and I'll be billions of other places.
And my atoms are in plants, bugs, the animals, and I am like the stars that are in the sky.
There one moment, and then just scattered across the goddamn cosmos.
We are the cosmos dreaming of itself. It's simply a dream that I think is my life every time. But I'll forget this. I always do.
I always forget my dreams.
But if it was a dream, it was one they all shared.
And nothing is more real than that. On January 16th of this year, my grandmother died. She was 86 years old. Her death wasn't really a shock. I mean, she was old. She'd already been in hospice for, I think, about a year, if not longer at that point. She'd been living with Parkinson's for much longer. For those of you who don't know, Parkinson's is a degenerative disease that affects the nervous system. Tremorings in the hands is, of course, the most common symptom, but also it affects cognitive abilities. So, as the years went on, she became a very different person from who I used to know.
She was 67, except sometimes by the end, she forgot that. Called me by my dad's name or her brother's. You know, try to pretend that I didn't know who I was supposed to be.
I didn't see most of that decline, to be honest with you. During the pandemic, it was a necessity to stay away from her, made all the more necessary by the fact that I was living in a far more populous area than she was. Or at least that's how I was able to justify some of it. Being perfectly honest, it was just easier not to try and visit. As years went on, I was discovering more and more how much that side of the family really drained me. I was increasingly frustrated by the behavior coming from my mother, which I was recognizing more and more to be incredibly inappropriate. And spending time with my grandmother usually meant also spending time with her. But also, I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to see her like that. I remembered how much that image, that final image of my grandfather stuck with me, and I didn't want that for her. You know, selfish as that feeling may be. I wanted to preserve this image I had of her, the woman who had robins nesting under her porch, who was terrified of the mice in her shed, who never really did anything to her, by the way. She just didn't like them. Who, well into her 70s, was still climbing up onto her own roof to clear the snow every winter, who helped to raise me as much, if not more, than my mother did. My feelings around my grandmother and my childhood are very complicated. She never fully knew me. She never knew I was queer or polyamorous. I really don't know how that conversation with her would have gone. Probably not particularly well. I mean, partially just because I don't think she ever would have really understood it. But then also, I still tend to date a lot of men, so she wanted all of my low-cut dresses to have a thick layer of lace spread over the chest. She hated the squirrels that would get into her bird feeder. She was a good, proper Christian woman, but also owned a collection of dirty comics that I saw once and have never fully recovered from. She was always leaving her glasses on the back of the toilet. When her sister was alive, the two of them would talk on the phone every night from 7 to 8. Every single night for years. You could not call my grandmother's house between 7 and 8. When my mother kicked me out of the house, it's my grandmother's that I first went to go live at. It was my home. She was home to me.
And she loved me so hard, it hurt.
She loved me. And I loved her. And I'm gonna miss her for the rest of my life. My name is mainly Mandy, and one day I will die. I don't know when it will happen or how. It could be any day now, any minute. It could happen while I'm filming this video. Wouldn't that be wild? Like, what if I'm just in the middle of a sentence, I just suddenly cut off and then it was just like... There's very little about my own death that I can control. I can't really control the when or where or how. There could be pain involved, agonizing, excruciating pain that makes me see stars before I finally slip into blessed unconsciousness. Maybe I'll be with loved ones, or maybe I'll be alone. There's no guarantee that when I die, when I finally get to that point, that I'll be in any place to accept it. I basically live my life like one long game of Skyrim. I have way too many side quests to finish, but darn it all, I'm still gonna try. Also, does anyone know where my horse is? What can I control? What is my ultimate purpose here? How do you live a life with as few regrets as possible? I suppose I can make sure my will is up to date, making the process of handling my remains as easy as possible for the loved ones that remain behind. I can express my love and gratitude frequently and loudly for the people in my life, so that when I am finally called home, or whatever euphemism you want to use, there's no doubt left behind about my feelings for them. My number one philosophy about my own life is that I kind of view it a bit like a campsite, and that I hope when I finally leave, I am leaving it a little bit better for the people who come next. It honestly kind of sucks that I'll never know that for certain. Okay. One last Michael Flanagan scene and then I'll wrap this up. Follow the House of Usher. Bunch of rich assholes die. It's great. Aronach, I believe, is supposed to be working on a proper video about it. Really excited for that. Anyway, after all of Roderick's children have died, his granddaughter, Lenore, is approached by Verna, our raven/devil character. Of course, those of us watching all know that this immediately spells disaster for Lenore. But interestingly, unlike with all the others, Verna seems reluctant.
There's a lot about my job I love, but there are moments like these that bring me no joy. I hope you know that.
So, before she kills Lenore, gently, painlessly, she tells her a story about her mother's long road to recovery, about how she uses part of the Fortunato fortune to create a nonprofit that helps victims of abuse, how eventually that organization goes on to save millions and millions of lives. And her mother names it after Lenore.
You did that. When you got her out of the house, when you defied your father, you did that. You saved those people. That choice you made echoes through millions of lives.
Lenore, in a way, is really lucky. Not just for Verna's mercy, of course, but because she gets to know that her life mattered. Sure, her fate is still very unfair, as unfair of any in the Michael Flanagan universe, but to get to know that, to know for certain that your life and the choices you made mattered. This scene makes me cry every time I watch it. I said earlier that the villains of the Flanagan verse, the ones who cause the most consistent harm, are those who refuse to accept death, who are so desperate in their need to survive, they go to extremes that nobody should. The heroes, on the flip side, are those who are brave in the face of death.
If I leave, I don't know where I'll go afterwards. Be brave in death, Hannah.
But I've been thinking that dying is a really shitty reason not to live.
It isn't about us anymore. It's about everyone else in the world. Dying for people we haven't even met. No greater love than that.
I know which group I'd rather be in. I still feel so small in light of the amassing odds around us. It just feels entirely too much. What are we supposed to do? What can we do? What can I do? Because of how unfair and short our time on this earth is, I think that we have a responsibility to try and make it as beautiful and joyous for as many people as possible. I truly think it is cruel and greedy to hoard any of that joy for ourselves. So, in the time that I have here, I am going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep trying to show up as much as possible to make sure that as many people as possible have a life worth living, not just surviving. Sometimes that's going to mean showing up to a demonstration to show solidarity with my trans siblings. And other times it's going to be sharing a GoFundMe for a Palestinian family. It means supporting legislation that gets our cities away from this dependence on fossil fuels, as well as pushing for accountability in our very broken judicial system. It also means taking the time to enjoy those moments when we do get a win, as small as they may be sometimes. I'm not saying we need to accept the bare minimum. And yeah, sometimes those wins truly don't feel enough. But I don't think it's wrong to just derive a little bit of hope when we do see something worthy of celebrating. I mean, look how many states are fighting to make abortion access possible. I talked previously in a video of mine that it's important to show up for the art that people makes, even when it's weird and campy. And okay, yeah, maybe it's about a zombie solving crimes by eating brains. I'm doubling down on that here. Showing up for weird art is radical, god damn it. For myself, I will keep doing what I can to take care of my community and to trust that they'll do the same for me. I'm going to keep going on odd adventures with my siblings, watch my nibblings grow up, and try to show up for people in my community, both when they have joy to share, but also when they're experiencing grief. I'm going to keep hoping for the best until the day I die. And when I finally do die, here's what I hope. I hope that everybody that loves me gathers together on the banks of the Kennebec River, the Sandy River, or some kind of main body of water, wearing a touch of purple, of course. I hope that they toast me with Diet Pepsi spiked with Fireball as Leave Out All the Rest plays by Linkin Park. And I hope that they'll all take turns reading this poem.
When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die.
And if you need to cry, cry for your brother, walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me.
I want to leave you something better than words or sounds.
Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on in your eyes and not in your mind.
You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free.
Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away.
My name is mainly Mandy, and if you're watching this, I might already be dead. But hopefully, I lived first. So, I would like to start this off by saying, I'm okay. I mean, I'm not okay, because like nobody's okay, but I'm okay. I'm doing as fine as I can be. I'm in therapy. Hopefully that alleviates some concerns. I really want to thank everybody so much, not just for showing up for this video, but all of my videos this past year, all, the other 3 in addition to this one, just to make it this one at a time. It's obviously been a bit of a year for me, as well as plenty of other people. There's just been a lot to deal with, and I really appreciate everyone's patience, especially though, of course, not limited to my Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/mainlymandy is where, if you enjoy my work, you can choose to give me money every month. Everybody from the $2 tier all the way up to the $50 tier gets the same rewards, because I don't like hierarchy and I don't like the idea of like punishing people for not giving me more money. Like, I don't know. It just, I feel like it overcomplicates it. So I just give everyone the same things. Patreon supporters get like behind the scenes pictures sometimes, or little things that I filmed. Like I actually filmed some extra stuff while I was in the cemetery that you saw earlier. Sometimes I also give them things like video diaries or blooper reels, that kind of thing. Basically, I just try to like give them a little bit of extra stuff just as a thank you. For this one, they also got to make a couple of decisions for this video. Specifically, they got to choose the song that played under the Rahul fan cam moment that was early in this video. I'm not gonna lie, I really thought they were gonna go for Alone by Heart. That was one of the choices. I really expected that to be the choice, but they surprised me. They went with Obsession, which, I mean, it's a great song. Who doesn't love it? I currently work 2 day jobs, and between the 2 day jobs and just everything else that's been going on, it's been hard for me to get to YouTube stuff, especially in the last couple of months. I've been managing to fit in, but it has been a bit extra challenging. One of the places I work at, I want to put this delicately, but not doing the best right now. And I think it's very likely that my time there probably will be coming to an end soon. And I, in particular, would really love to be in a position where instead of having to replace this job with another day job, I could just use those 2 days that I would be usually working there a week and instead maybe work on YouTube stuff. That does mean I need to be in a position financially where I can afford to leave a job and then not replace it with something, which currently I am not in that position. But if you all say wanted to start going over to patreon.com if you hadn't made that decision yet and give me some money, or maybe give me a one-time donation on the regular, I do have Venmo, PayPal, and Coffee down below. Those are all great ways to support this channel as well. There are other things you support this channel too that are not financial, liking the videos, commenting down below, sharing it with people. If you're commenting down below, get into fights in the comments, but like nice fights. Like I don't like actual fights, but like if you start replying to each other down there and have little conversations, that really helps with the algorithm. Like just like aggressively compliment each other, like I want you down there being like, I bet that you're a source of kindness and light to everybody in your life. And then I want you to type back like, oh yeah, well your face makes me happy inside. Feel free to also share stories about if you've gone through any deaths. Like most people I know at this point have experienced a death this year. So I'd be curious to know if that's true for my audience as well. Tell me about how you're doing. Just say hi. A hi is nice too. There are lots of interesting videos that I have planned for this next year, and certainly if I'm in a position where I can actually like dedicate more time to YouTube, then hopefully I can get more videos out, and that's certainly the plan, and Lord knows that we're all struggling financially right now, so part of me feels weird asking for money, but that's the world we live in right now, at least for now. Maybe if some more CEOs die, it won't be the case. I don't condone anything, so nobody use that for something. Anyway, I do have some videos planned. Like I still want to come out with the polyamory and neurodivergency video, which actually is probably going to be my first video of next year. So expect that hopefully sometime between February and March. I'm also still working on the big main project. That one, I'm not sure exactly when that's going to come out. It obviously got delayed. But hopefully that's like going to be a next year in general to be working on project, and then they'll come out the following year. So, fingers and toes crossed. I also have some ideas about maybe doing some shorter, simpler videos that are about maybe like reviewing some polyamory representation, because this channel is sometimes about polyamory. Sometimes. And yeah, there's some other things, odds and ends I want to do. So, keep an eye out. I'm also thinking about maybe trying to do better about streaming, because I keep saying I'm going to do more streaming and then I don't. But, just let me know in the comments, what are you interested at? What kind of things do you want me to cover? What would get you more interested in supporting me on Patreon if you haven't done that already? Is there something I should be doing? Maybe I should be making more like exclusive videos for Patreon. Like I've considered doing that, like reviewing some more of the books and materials that I use to make my videos. That's something I know some people do. So if you'd be interested in that, just let me know. Thank you all so much for being here this past year. This has been a lot. It has been a lot, but doing YouTube, honestly, I've really gotten so much enjoyment out of it. This is something that really energizes me, and it does take a lot of work, and it is sometimes still draining, but it's draining in the fun way. Like honestly, doing YouTube is one of the things that's keeping me going right now on like a mental note. So thank you for showing up. It really meant a lot to me, especially with the last video. The response to that one has been overwhelming. Also, I'm so sorry about the audio issue at the beginning. I'm so sorry. Just remember that I'm a newbie and I don't know anything. And one day I'll have enough money that I can fucking hire somebody to do my audio for me. Okay? Just I'm working on it. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't yet. And do me a favor, please. Don't die. Just everyone promise. We're all promising right now. None of us are going to die next year. Nobody. No, you. Hey. And that's the end of the video.
I returned a bag of groceries, accidentally taken off the shelf before the expiration date. I came back as a bag of groceries, accidentally taken taken off the shelf before the day stamped on myself. Did a large procession wave their torches as my hand fell in the basket, and was everybody dancing on the casket? Now it's over, I'm dead, and I haven't done anything that I want, or I'm still alive and there's nothing I want to do. I will never say the word procrastinate again. I'll never see myself in the mirror with my eyes closed. I didn't apologize for when I was 8 and I made my younger brother have to be my personal slave. Did a large procession wave their torches as my head fell in the basket, and was everybody dancing on the casket? Now it's over, I'm dead, and I haven't done anything that I want, or I'm still alive and there's nothing I want to do. So I won't sit at home anymore, and you won't see my head in the window, and I won't be around ever anymore, and I'll be up there on the wall at the store. I returned a bag of groceries accidentally taken off the shelf before the expiration date. I came back as a bag of groceries accidentally taken off the shelf before the date stamped on myself. Did a large procession wave their torches as my head fell in the basket, and was everybody dancing on the casket? Now it's over, I'm dead, and I haven't done anything that I want, or I'm still alive and there's nothing I want to do. Now it's over, I'm dead, and I haven't done anything that I want, or I'm still alive and there's nothing I want to do.